Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today we're going way back in time. You see, we've got something genuinely important here, not just for car history, but for British industry as a whole. It's this 1954 Land Rover Series 1. I've borrowed this nice example from a kind viewer called Tim, so I thought today I'd show you around it, tell you all about it, and then take it for a drive. Are you up for that? Let's get started. What this is a really important piece of history. You see, this is the great-grandfather of every Defender, Discovery and Range Rover you see on the roads today. It's actually quite hard to express in words just how important this car is in world history. You see, for many people in many nations, this Land Rover Series 1 was the first car they ever saw. You can really see why it's still adored by everybody today, from farmers to collectors to people who just like the idea of owning the automotive equivalent of a pair of Wellington boots. So let's start with the story of where this thing came from, because it genuinely sounds like the plot of some BBC period drama. After the Second World War, Britain desperately needed to boost its exports to rebuild the economy. Now Rover, who'd previously been known for making posh saloons, realised that nobody wanted luxury cars when everybody in the country was fighting over a loaf of bread and a bit of fuel. They needed to do something drastic. They needed to make something that was cheap to build, easy to sell overseas, rugged, useful, and ideally something that wasn't going to be rationed into oblivion. Enter Maurice Wilks, Rover's chief designer, who was using a war surplus Willys Jeep on his farm in Anglesey. He loved the concept of that car, but he wanted something that was slightly more civilised, more British and more usable as a day-to-day vehicle. So he took a stick, drew the outline of a new all-purpose 4x4 in the sand on the beach in Anglesey, and essentially invented the concept of the Land Rover right there. So yes, this is very much Britain's answer to the American Willys Jeep. Not a copy, but a reinterpretation. A Jeep for farmers, explorers, surveyors, soldiers, aid workers, and just about anybody who needed a machine that would just work. This was never meant to be a luxury item. It was meant to be a tool, like a tractor with a roof. The Series 1 wasn't just another car. It was one of the most important vehicles the UK ever produced. It exported everywhere, including markets Rover could never have reached with its saloons. Let's not forget, at that time, the British Empire was still vast, and this was a vehicle that was capable of visiting every last square mile of her territories. Even though Britain was reeling after the First World War, it was still an influential country. And this car was massively important for Britain's post-war economy. It also cemented the idea that a vehicle could be simple, tough, endlessly repairable, and built to outlast several of its owners. There are Series 1 Land Rovers in Africa that have outlived governments. There are ones here in Australia that have done more miles than light aircraft. And because so many were used by the military and utility companies, they became part of the landscape, both literally and culturally. The model we're in today is a 1954, so it sits right in the middle of the Series 1 run. You see, it first came out in 1948, and it ran all the way until 1967, when it was replaced with the Series 2. I know this is hard to believe in 2025, but this was the first mass-produced civilian 4x4 with luxuries like doors and a roof. The really impressive thing about the Series 1 is that they were so simple and rugged. They just ran and ran and ran. In fact, in 1992, Land Rover claimed that 70% of all cars they'd ever produced were still on the road. This uses a clever box section chassis and aluminium body panels, not because it was a clever futuristic idea, but because that's all that was lying around after the war. You see, at that time steel was scarce, but there was a surplus of aluminium lying around called Burma-Bright. So necessity created the look. This is very much a make, do and mend car. It's also the reason many of these were painted in a shade of green, because there was a surplus of military green paint lying around after the war. And I just love this because it's evidence of that make, do and mend attitude that made Britain great. Keep calm and carry on, but on four wheels. Because most of the body's made from aluminium, these things don't rust. I mean, the chassis can, of course, but the body panels, well, they'll still look the same 70 years later. Unless, of course, you reverse it into a dry stone wall, which many have. Styling-wise, I mean, it's so simple, you could practically sketch it with a ruler. There really is nothing to it. It's a very boxy shape, you have these flat panels, everything serves a purpose. It's a very simple, no-nonsense design. This really is function over form. If you look at this car and think there's a part missing, there probably isn't. It's probably just the way it left the factory. They were also incredibly versatile. They're available as a short wheelbase, long wheelbase, and they could be converted into pretty much anything. Also, did you know the first prototype of the Land Rover was fitted with a steering wheel in the middle of the car? They were looking into ways of keeping costs down and trying to save money wherever they could. So by making just one car with a steering wheel in the middle, suited both right-hand drive and left-hand drive markets. Thankfully, they eventually dropped that idea. This thing's hard enough to drive as it is. In case you're wondering what's under the bonnet, let's have a look, shall we? Early examples came with a 1.6 litre four-cylinder with about 37 brake horsepower. On later models like this, that was upgraded to a 2 litre with about 50 horsepower. A couple of years later, they also introduced a diesel. Here's another fun fact for you. The Land Rover was only ever designed to be in production for 2 or 3 years, just to put some cash back in the bank at Rover so they could start making cars again. During the Second World War, the factory in Coventry was completely obliterated by the Germans. So this vehicle was only supposed to be around for 2 or 3 years, but it was that popular, they continued to make it right until 2016. It's incredible, isn't it? Now, what's it like to drive? Well, should we take it for a spin and I'll show you? Well, it's a very basic interior, this. You've got to really slam the door to make sure it's shut, but it's surprisingly spacious. There's seating here for 3 and there's plenty of headroom. You even get air conditioning. Look at this. Fancy. The gauge cluster is in the middle and you've got a speedo and a fuel gauge. The fuel tank is actually under the driver's seat. Would you like to see it? So you undo this here and remove the seat completely. This isn't a faff, is it? And then you spin this around. There's like a Hassman staple thing on it. Pull that up and it reveals the fuel tank. Then you turn this and then pop some fuel in. How easy is that? Oh, I love the smell of petrol. There we go, the door's shut. You get an enormous steering wheel, and that's how much play there is in it. You get 3 pedals. Obviously this is manual, it wasn't available as an automatic. The pedals are weirdly hinged, and the accelerator pedal, shall we say, is just a piece of flat bar that's been bent slightly. It's a 4-speed manual, which makes that kind of noise. Reverse gear is over to the left and up, and we've got a choke, an engine start button, and the handbrake down here. So it really is about as basic as can be. Remember, the whole theory that this is just a tractor with a roof, so don't expect massaging seats or anything like that. Should we start it up then? Check it's in neutral. I think that's neutral, but I'm not sure. Put the ignition on. It really does feel like you're in an old plane. And then press the start button. There we go. Do we need to pull the choke out or not? A little bit. We'll just pull the choke out slightly. I haven't driven a car with a choke for a long time. As you can probably tell straight away, there are loads of rattles and vibrations and it's very loud. Close that window slightly. There we go. You've got an indicator here, and that's pretty much it. I don't know whether this wiring's factory or not. It is a Land Rover, so it could well be. And you've got 2 levers down here, which I assume switch it from 2-wheel drive to 4-wheel drive. I think right now we're just in rear-wheel drive. What else can I tell you about it? That's pretty much it. Should we take it for a spin then? I think we can do over the choke now then, can we? There we go. Choke is disengaged. It's ticking over nicely. Wish me luck. And we're away. Another thing to point out with this car is there's no seat belt, which is a bit worrying. Still, this thing doesn't really get fast enough for you to have any sort of accident, any serious accident anyway. It's very loud, and there's no, very bouncy. There's no synchro mesh on the gearbox either, so you find yourself crunching the gears. Oh. Can you believe people cross continents in these? It is so stiff and bouncy. You've got leaf spring suspension all around, so this thing just shakes you all over the place. Should we go for 3rd gear? Maybe not then. 4th's all right. Nothing wrong with 4th. Jesus. Oh. I can't stress this enough, but this is the worst thing I've ever driven. Is my door closed properly? Yep, it is. There we go. It's really appalling, honestly. It's noisy, slow. It whines a lot. Visibility is quite poor because you've only got these mirrors on the wings. They are actually wing mirrors. The steering is all over the place as well. There is that much play in it. You've got to constantly make adjustments just to keep yourself in a straight line. And yet, it's quite charming. I found myself driving this today, grinning ear to ear. I don't know why. Maybe I'm a masochist. It's quite happy at about 38, 40 miles an hour. You can't really push it more than that. Not that you'd want to with no seatbelt. When you get it going though, it's still bad. Now when you get it going though, it does get a little bit easier. When you first get in one of these though, it is quite daunting. You're really wrestling with the steering just to keep it straight and through. In terms of performance, from a standstill to like 30 miles an hour, it's not horrendously slow. It does have a little bit about it. It's not a particularly heavy car, this. So it's 50 brake horsepower engine. It's quite adequate. Braking, wrestle with the steering. There we go. Put it back in first gear with a crunch. And we are off. Bouncing all over the place. Before we continue the Land Rover review, I just need to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsor, Car Vertical. Now, if you're in the market for a used car or bike, it's really important that you do a thorough vehicle history check before you hand over any cash. And with Car Vertical, that couldn't be easier. All you need to do is go to carvertical.com, and don't worry, I'll leave the link below in the video description, and simply type in your reg or the VIN. This isn't just a UK thing either, it works in 35 different countries. So once you check vehicle, it checks database in all those countries, and it'll tell you if the car's ever been stolen, written off, had a mileage rollback, or has outstanding finance on it. In addition to that, it shows you the ownership changes, the reg plate changes, the spec, the average market value, and a whole lot more, so it's a really useful tool. It doesn't take long and it isn't expensive, and it's cheaper still if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK. That's HIGHPEAK all one word, HIGHPEAK, and you'll save yourself 20% off each and every check that you do. And you can use that promo code as many times as you like. It's not a one-time thing. So yeah, thanks Car Vertical for sponsoring today's video. Back to the Land Rover. Oh, and that ride is really bad. It's kind of exactly what you'd expect from the 1940s, isn't it? Driving this makes you realise that it really is a tractor with a roof and doors. That's it. The only luxury you get really is some shelter from the weather. You don't so much go for a drive in this thing, instead you go on an adventure. Driving this will make you feel like Sir Ranulph Fiennes. As bad as this is, and make no mistake, it is bad, there's something quite magical about it. Should we in second that? You're never quite sure. There we go, there's first. Yeah, there's just something quite charming and magical about it. Magical. You know, most modern cars isolate you from the world outside. This doesn't. Instead, this throws the whole world at you, right at your face, whether you want it or not. It's hard to believe that in its day, people actually bought these as a family car. A company called Tickford converted them so they could carry up to 10 people. I couldn't think of anything worse. Driving this makes you feel like Granny Clampett, or the father from the Darling Buds of May. It's just simple, honest and tough, and it just tells the story of Britain rebuilding after the war. It's a throwback to a simpler time, when people just rolled up their sleeves and got on with it. They didn't complain or whinge. They didn't have days off work because they didn't feel up to it. They just got stuck in. I'm behind a cyclist now and I don't really have the power to overtake or the visibility. I'm going for it. See what I mean about the steering? It's so bad. It's all over the place. Now I was warned about the steering. I didn't think it would be this bad. Well, I think that's about it for the Series 1 Land Rover. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And yeah, I think that's about it. I'm going to go and take this back to Tim now, so thank you for lending it to me, Tim. And jump in something with air conditioning and cruise control and some sound deadening, because I think I'm going deaf. Right, cheers guys, see you next time.